Firstly, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and community. We also pay our respects to them and their cultures and to their elders, both past and present. Welcome to episode 27 of Talking Prisoner. We have another amazing guest with us today. She appeared in 10 episodes of Prisoner. Her character was very fiery and impulsive. She has also appeared in The Fringe Dwellers, The Flying Doctors, Ground Zero, The Jerry Connolly Show, Naked Under Capricorn, Rafferty's Rules, Until the End of the World, Bly, The Genie from Down Under, Little Elvis Jones and the Truck Stoppers, Harry's War, also the movie The Sapphires and Redfern Now. She's also worked in several other occupations as well as being active in the Aboriginal community. We're of course talking about the talented Kylie Belling, who played Sarah West. Welcome to Talking Prisoner. Good morning.
Good morning, Matt. Good morning, Ken.
Welcome, Ken.
Good morning.
Now, before we dive into all the prisoner stuff, we'd firstly like to learn a little about your life growing up, if that's okay.
Okay.
So what was your childhood like? Do you have any memories you could share with us?
My childhood was, when you're looking back over the years, idyllic, really. I was brought up one of 4 Aboriginal children. We were adopted by a white couple, and we're the 1%, the success rate of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal adoptions at the time. Now that white couples can't adopt Aboriginal children, which is all good and fine, but so the 1% success rate. I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister. We all went to a Keilor primary school. So Keilor then was a little country town. I can still remember, horses and carts.
Oh, really?
At a market garden, so it was a real, So, as growing up, we walked to school and, my brother made us walk in a line, from oldest to youngest. And, that we're all house captains of our school. We're all good, good at sport, of course, except for my brother, my second brother wasn't very good at sport, but he had other, kind of interests that made him popular at school anyway. So, being good at sport as an Aboriginal child is a good thing. My brother was my role model growing up. He's passed, but he was an amazing character. He got 98% on his HSC English, one of those, I didn't experience any racism until I went out into the big wide world.
Oh, really?
Did you have a favourite subject at school?
It was, let me think. I wasn't particularly kind of interested in performing when I was, younger. I had a lisp. So I had a gap in between my teeth, and my mother took me to elocution lessons. And that's when I began performing, really. So I was, kind of enrolled in a Stedfords where you go and perform in front of, judges. And that's where, in way back, child stars, a lot of the young ones, that's how they got into acting. But, I grew up, my front teeth fell out, the gap disappeared, and, like performing in a Stedford. So even though I was very good, got gold medals and everything, it was, considered a bit daggy. But, I did actually love performing from a very early stage. Yeah.
And when you just said the step, was that the rocker Stedfords you're talking about back then?
They were speaking elocution of Stedfords.
Oh, wow.
In front of, I think, like they flew English judges out, and perform poems. Yeah, you'd get up there and you'd perform poems and prose. And then there was one kind of competition section where you would improvise. You were given a a situation where you had 3 minutes to kind of, improvise and come up with a beginning, middle and end of a story, and you were judged on it, and it was fairly kind of, cutthroat and hectic. You were, but that's how, I learnt to kind of, get up there and perform, girl. Sparkle, Shirley.
So just going back just before when Ken asked you a question, and you said about school, no racism whatsoever at school until you got into the big wide world. When did it sort of start, racism? Like where?
Probably like going out, when I went Hila Primary to Penley Ladies College, because that was what you did, which is now Essendon Grammar, of course. Yeah. I had my schoolmates from, when I was in prep, right through. So we were very sort of secure and protected and had our friends from, year dot around us. And then it was kind of, I always knew we were different, but I had my brothers and sister, we were the only Aboriginal kids in school. But, because of my brothers, we were okay. And, it was just kind of, and my mum and dad particularly, made sure that we never kind of were made to feel, kind of like second-class citizens any way, shape or form. And, gave us every opportunity that we could, treated us all as individuals. We all had different activities. My younger sister had a horse, hated me, but, so she, they kind of really made sure that we had, every opportunity to do and pursue what we wanted to do. Yeah, so we're very lucky, I think,
Speaking of your parents, what did they do for work back when you were younger?
My mum and dad were industrial chemists.
Oh, wow.
How's that? RMIT at night school studying, to become, industrial chemists while they had work during the day.
Amazing.
So,
when did you know you wanted to be in entertainment, and what did your parents think when you told them?
I did not want to be an actor, of course. I thought, as I said, mum and dad, made sure we had every opportunity. I think I dropped out of year 12, and this, if any children are watching, don't ever do this. I was like 7 days behind. I just had a really fun social life. We were out and about when we were younger. But yeah, so I kind of said, I don't want to go to school anymore. Mum gave me a weekend off and enrolled me in secretarial college.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I thought, okay. She said, that if you don't want to go to school. So I finished secretarial studies, and I got a job, and she got me a job at the University of Melbourne. How's that? Working for Professor Blaney. I'm not sure any of you will remember that. And I think one day, I was sort of cruising around thinking, I was a bit embarrassed because by the time I was working at the university, my friends, who'd finished their VCE then were actually studying, their first year of university, and I was working in the history office. So it was, and I think I just said to someone, that acting looks easy. I was watching TV one time, somehow or other, not even to my mother, and she said, I'll pay you $50 if you go and if you audition for VCA. And I said, $50, yeah, I'll do it. That's a good night out. That's a good, few weekends out. And so I went to the university library, got out. So we had to do an Irish audition. I can't even remember what it was, a piece, a classic, Oedipus Rex or something like that. And I auditioned and I got into VCA. I had no idea what I was doing. So I was, in the class of 83 at VCA. How's that? Or actually class of 85, so it's 3 years. And I was surrounded by people, young you know, kind of really intense, industrious, you know, who'd want to be actors, you know, since they were knee-high to a grasshopper. And I was just like cruising along going, oh. And somehow or other, I got through the 3 years, you know, and graduated. And actually, it was before I graduated. Oh gosh, even that's a long story. VCA, we were at, a new building was, the VCA drama school moved to a new building, and then that got a, and we were performing, you know, we were asked to perform as part of the new building complex. And I got my photo taken to the Herald Sun playing old Queen Margaret in Richard III. And from that photo in that Herald Sun, I got an agent.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And this was before everyone graduated. I was in final year, and then that agent, who was, you know, he was the agent for, you know, big wigs, but, you know, all that kind of stuff. I had no idea, and he said, I've got I want you to audition for this role in a new Bruce Beresford film.
Wow.
And I was flown up to Sydney, met Bruce. I knew I didn't get the lead role, but anyway, they offered me the sister. So I had to ask permission from the unit, from VCA, to be allowed to go up to Queensland to film The Fringe Dwellers. How's that for, like, you know, you never know what's going to happen.
Did everyone get jealous of you getting an agent before they all graduated, or?
They may have. I had no idea. And then I came back to graduate, and that's when everyone performed, you know, because that's when the agents all come at the end of final year performance.
Yep.
And, you know, like, you know, I'd already got an agent, so I didn't have to go through all that. But yeah, I realised how tough this business really is.
Yeah.
I was up in Queensland filming The Fringe Dwellers, of which, you know, I had no idea what I was doing. Again, I got an audition for Flying Doctors.
Oh.
Yeah. So I was flown down to Brisbane, did an audition, you know, to camera, and got that role.
Wow.
So
we do want to talk about Flying Doctors shortly, but spare time, do you have any hobbies you like to do? If you have any spare time, but do you have any hobbies you like to do?
No hobbies. I don't know whether you can hear there, I've got a little puppy in the background. That takes up a lot of time. I also have a 31-year-old daughter who takes up a lot of my time as well. And, you know, kind of when I had her, you know, that kind of changed a lot as well. Yeah. You know, what I had to do. You can't be a bum actor all your life, you know.
Daughters do take up time. I've got a 9-year-old. They
well, yes.
like having 2 full-time jobs.
No.
Do you have a favourite food, and do you have a favourite dish you cook?
My goodness. No, not really. I'm ready. Eggs.
Eggs.
Yeah, I can boil them too.
Yeah, boil, scramble. Yeah. You know, I could live on eggs.
I'm
not an amazing cook by any stretch of the imagination. Luckily, my daughter is, so you know.
That's good.
Yeah.
Do you have any favourite TV shows or movies you like to watch?
Oh, well, given we've just come out of 2 years of lockdown, you know, just name me a Netflix show that I haven't seen, I would put to you. There you go. What do I love? Now I would embarrass myself, and my daughter gets very embarrassed because, you know, it's all the teen flicks and rom-coms and, you know, daggy stuff. You know, it doesn't take, you know, it's nice and relaxing.
Yeah, well, you don't have to use your brain. I like that.
Yeah, gotcha.
You graduated from the Victorian College of the Arts in 1985. Can you tell us about that? And were you there with anyone else we may have heard of?
Yes, you know me. You, let's say you may know me from, but actually it was a lot of the people, my best mates at college were my mate Nicole and my mate Nick Giannopoulos.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Nicole, do you mean Nicole Kidman or?
no, another Nicole, but yeah, no, she went to NIDA, not to, you know, with, yeah, the poor cousin. But yeah, yeah, so I went to, so Nick Giannopoulos was in my year. Now, Nick and I were probably, and Nicole Redley can know me, she's, we were the only, kind of non-blonde hair, blue-eyed, like, yeah. So Nick was always kind of, questioning, the college, saying, why can't he be Romeo? And I agree, why couldn't he play Romeo? I kind of didn't mind playing the servant roles because they were the best, like they were, they got the, in all of the, comedy shows, it was the servants that got the, showed the upper class, got their comeuppance and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't mind being cast in those roles, but, he was kind of, much more political than me and sort of saying he should be able to have that right. And fair enough. So, he was challenging, the college and the institution and the status quo from, from those days. And hence, the work was out of work.
Yeah.
Came to fruition a few years after he graduated. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he's amazing. Are you still in contact with him, or?
No, not really. I actually was in Wagarama for many, many years. Yeah, he had a role for me in that. So, but no, I haven't caught up with him for a while.
Yeah. Now you're also a qualified secondary school teacher. How did all that start?
So, again, my mother, I don't think I told you my mother kind of became a careers education teacher. So hence, I think I was a bit of her guinea pig along the way, and, I acquiesced. So, I, went to secretarial college, and then, I went to BCA because she, always looking for opportunities for her children. And then she said, oh, you can't rely on this acting gig. You should always have a second, second career up your sleeve. So while I was doing in Stolen, the play Stolen, I actually completed my secondary teaching degree. Yeah, so yeah. And I've always liked to study. I'm still studying now. So anyway.
Wow.
Well, as well as that, you also hold a Master of Public Health. How did that come about?
Well, that happened because I guess after the phone stopped ringing, there is a point where that happens for actremes, that I had to go, and I realised I taught as a secondary school teacher for a little while, but I realised I was looking out the window more than the kids were. So it was probably not for me, to stay in the classroom. At the same time, I was teaching year sevens, where my daughter was a year 7 as well. So it was like, it was all just a bit kind of, go that, and you can't get in between fights with kids. And anyway, that's another story. But yeah, so teaching wasn't in a classroom wasn't for me. So what did I do? I went, I had to find other work, I guess. So at some stage I entered in the public service, and I was working in the Department of Health, and the opportunity to pursue my Masters of Public Health was offered to me, so I took it.
Wow. Brilliant. Now, also in 2017, you completed the Williamson Community Leadership Program. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Again, it's part of, when you're wherever you are, you're always meant to be looking around for other opportunities and, professional development opportunities, wherever they may lie. And the Williamson Community Leadership Program came up, and I applied and got into that. So that was really, really interesting, a real eye opener. And, but I realised that I'm actually not kind of, like I don't need to climb up the echelons of the public service. It's not for me, really. I mean, I love my job where I'm working at the moment, but and hope to stay there for a while. But it's and I have big questions around leadership and what that means. Anyway, don't get me started on that.
You're very active in the Aboriginal community in Victoria, and as it turns out, coincidentally, I and my wife worked for the Aboriginal Advancement League and for the Elders, ACES, and we have a mutual acquaintance in Deirdre King, Auntie Deirdre King, and you know her quite well.
Yes, and she worked at the Aboriginal Housing Board before she went on to ACES. Yeah, so and her co-worker Bev was actually one of the co-founders of IIbijerri. I'm jumping the gun for you all. I know that I should.
Nice. Yeah. Fine.
It's like that's how things tie in, isn't it? It's amazing. Yeah.
Wow. So in 1998, you were the first actress to play Ruby in the Indigenous Australian play called Stolen, a role you reprised in 2000 and 2003 in several performances across Australia and also internationally. It toured obviously in the UK, Hong Kong, Tokyo, Canada, New York, and it also won the Raka Award in 1998. How did you get that part? Such a special play.
It was. And it was actually the second play, I think, for IIbijerri. So I just mentioned that was what with Bev, we're one of the co-founders of IIbijerri Aboriginal Theatre Co-Operative. Yep. And so, after, a number of years and, enjoying the success, which it really was, coming straight out of college and going straight into, TV productions and, number of theatre roles. I had the opportunity to go to the second Aboriginal Playwrights Conference, which was held in Sydney. So it would have been 30-something years ago. And that's when I finally got to meet other First People writers, performers, like it was like an amazing, amazing moment for me, because while I'd had that success, none of those roles were written by Aboriginal people for Aboriginal people. And all of a sudden I was, slap bang in the middle of, Aboriginal performance.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was incredibly, finally I felt, this is what I want to pursue. This is what interests me. And luckily there were a number of Victorian people also at that national conference. And after we all came home, we said, why don't we set up a Victorian First Peoples theatre group? And that was the beginning of IIbijerri. IIbijerri is celebrating its 30th years.
Wow.
This year. Yeah. So
are you still involved with that, or?
No, not anymore. Although I'm on the committee for the 30-year, celebration committee, and have had a little bit to do with it over the years. So at one time I was the artistic director. I've been a worker for about 10 of those years, of the first 10 years I worked with IIbijerri. Yeah, so really proud of that, and really proud of Stolen, the production. So basically, we performed a play Up the Road, which had already been written by one of the co-founders. And we toured that show Up the Road. We had, you know, mostly first-time performers in it, you know, like Denise Kickett, Grant Hanson. You may not know those names. That was the first time they'd ever kind of performed on stage. We toured that around the state, and then afterwards thought, what are we going to do? So we as a cooperative all got together and said, what's the most pertinent issue facing, you know, Aboriginal communities today? And then it was the stolen generations. Yeah. So it's actually it was called the Lost Children. We were called the Lost Children, you know, as though we'd kind of lost our way. But then this was pre-Royal Commission. And also we wanted to kind of challenge the idea of, you know, the star system. You know, there's, you know, 2 stars performing, you know, or 1 star telling the story. Stolen actually tells a story, you know, multiple stories, and it's an ensemble of 5 actors playing so many different roles, each, you know, each with equal parts, and each kind of, kind of telling the story of the many, many, many painful and horrible stories of what is now known as the stolen generation.
Wow. And what was it like taking it internationally, like touring that over? What was the reaction from audiences overseas?
We thought they probably wouldn't get it. You know, it's kind of almost like, you know, this is the history of Australia that you don't know. You know, this is the history of Australia that many Australians don't know. Yeah. And, you know, we weren't taught that in school, you know, like it was, well, anyway. So when it toured, you know, it was really important for it to tour around the country, and it did. And we had so many, you know, of our communities come and relate to it, you know, but also on a really kind of basic level. Imagine, you know, imagine someone coming in and taking your child. Yeah. And that's what, on a really basic human level, you know, that story. And there are so many in every other, you know, colonized country around the world. That's what happened. But also it still happens in, you know, different, you know, settings across the world, you know, from, you know, I was amazed in England, for example, in London, they could really relate to that story because it was happening with, you know, their children were taken from their mothers because they couldn't, you know, house them properly and all that kind of stuff. It still goes on today. So, but it was on a very universal human level. That story really has an amazing impact.
Definitely. Should be really proud of it. And still to this day, they I was researching it, that many schools have put that in their English curriculum, that play as well, yeah. Which is something you should be very proud of.
Yeah, I think we've all of us were at that stage, and that, you know, told many stories, and so many people were involved in the telling of that. Yeah.
Wow. Can you tell us about other theatre productions you've been in? Did you enjoy theatre?
Yes, theatre was, you know, my first love. Of course, when you went to college, and it was, you know, it's all about live theatre. It was like, you know, TV, it's, you know, like, you know, maybe a film or 2, you know, may help your career. But it was like, I always just wanted to do theatre, you know, and like getting these gigs on TV, they were all right, you know, they were kind of paid the bills because you got paid a lot more than you do in, you know, in a theatre production. But, you know, what stories were you telling? For example, you know, I said I auditioned for Flying Doctors, and you know, I got the role of Sharon Herbert, like I was the only Aboriginal in the main cast, of course, and it was never really explained, you know, why this, Aboriginal person was there. I always joke that I was in the background answering the phones in my Linda Chamberlain summer dresses. But it was a good gig, but again, when First People's storyline came on, there was, it changed a lot of my perspective about what was going on. They actually got a non-Aboriginal person to play an Aboriginal role. I wasn't part of it somehow, yeah. And other cast members rang me and said, "Do you know this is going on? This is very controversial." But it was at the time. And, this is, these are all sort of part of the stories that said, I'd much rather work, and be involved in Aboriginal theatre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, I was so lucky in having so many kind of, theatre roles as well. Work at MTC and, Playbox as it was called then, Malthouse. So, and theatre for me is still the most exciting thing, I hope people get back to live theatre and, because it's all about bums on seats, of course. But the immediacy, when you're like, you're not doing well, the audience will tell you, you can't go take two and come back and try it again. You can the next night, but you have to work hard and you have to make it interesting for yourself, and you have to make it interesting, of course, for the audience, and know that you're a cog in a wheel of telling the story, so the immediacy, all the magical stuff that happens in live theatre, and it can go to really quickly as well, but yeah, it's really exciting when you're able to reach an audience and have moved them and hopefully change their lives in some way. You don't get that behind, when you're behind the camera, that's it, or in front of the camera, I guess. Yeah.
Now, my next question we've actually already covered, so we will move over to Ken's next one.
As of 2019, you work as Senior Manager, First Peoples for Creative Victoria. How did that come about? And can you tell us what your job role involved?
Well, I have now been in the public service for over 10 years. So, and I've worked, in health, justice, in the family violence space. I've worked for tobacco control. So all of those, and then, and the public service is a little bit like, the rest of my life. You just wait for the next opportunity. And I was happy to kind of land in health, and I got my master's out of it, but it was when the opportunity for me to work in Creative Victoria, it was almost like coming home, so I'm really happy to be First Peoples in Senior Manager First Peoples, where we're actually responsible for funding First Peoples artists, creators, and peak organisations as well. Wow. So I'm on the other side. Instead of, for IIbijerri kind of, having to write, copious amounts of submissions for dollars, I'm now on the other side, but I know how tough it is. I know how hard it is. And, I really hope that Creative Victoria helps and supports our First Peoples organisations and creatives to be able to practice their art forms. And so as Senior Manager for that role, we try and embed Aboriginal self-determination within the, the public service as much as we can. And that's how I'm setting up structures or helping to set up structures for that to happen as well. Wow. But to support First Peoples artists is, you know, so close to my heart. Yeah.
Well, you've done so much, like so many things. Now, my next question again was about the flying doctors, which we've also covered as well. So
I'm sorry, I'm taking
no, it's fine. It's great.
You do actually have the second part of that question, Matt, was about...
Oh, yes, sorry. There was a few actors that were on Prisoner that you've worked with that were in the Flying Doctors. Do you remember much about that? People like Maurie Fields and Val Jellay.
So Maurie's character and Val, they were kind of like my foster parents, if you like. So they were in the pub, and somehow I was kind of, you know, part of their family. It was never really fully explained. But what an honour to work with the likes of Maurie and Val. They were amazing. Maurie, uncle, I shouldn't, I could just call him Maurie, but he knew the second the camera was on him. Like, you know, you just, that's, you know, from his old vaudeville days or whatever, when there wasn't the camera. But, you know, he knew, you know, they were so consummate professionals. Well, you know, he'd be, and then camera on. Like to do the room, you know, and he'd know the second it hit him and he was ready, you know. And then he'd do his ying, and then the camera off, and it was you know, like it was just magic, you know. And Val was the same, you know. They were just consummate professionals. What an honour, you know. I didn't realise it at the time. I knew like he was the funniest bloke I'd ever met, you know, like just such a character. You know, hold the floor, you know. And she was pretty, she kept him, you know, in line as well. So, yeah, exactly. It was wonderful to work with the likes of those, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, they did something special on Hey Hey It's Saturday not long back with his son Marty being on screen next to Maurie doing the great Aussie joke that he used to do on Hey Hey It's Saturday, and it was amazing to, you know, they had him still there with Marty. It was great.
Yeah.
I was lucky enough to work with both Maurie and Val back in the 1960s out at Channel 7 on a show called Sunny Side Up, and they were just like everybody's uncle and aunt. Now, in 2012, you appeared in an Australian movie called The Sapphires, which was written by Keith Thompson and Tony Briggs and starred Jessica Mauboy, Deborah Mailman, yourself, and many other well-known actors. The film was based on the Indigenous all-female group, the Sapphires, in Shepparton in the 1950s. I've seen it, and it was a great film, who were Lois Peeler, Laurel Robinson, and Beverly Briggs, who have said that the film was not completely accurate. What was your thoughts on the movie, and how did you get the part on it?
It was an amazing film. So Tony is like my cousin. Yeah, they're, you know, the Briggs family are very well known and, you know, part of the community down here. And, you know, really staunch, powerful women, and they've taught their children well. You know, Tony's, I think Tony's a co-founder, or he was very involved with IIbijerri.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so he was in, yeah, he was in Stolen. Yeah, we go way back. But how wonderful that Tony went on to pursue his writing career, and also still does, you know, in making films. And with Creative Victoria actually support, you know, his Birrarunga Film Festival, so which shows First Peoples produced films from throughout the world. So of course we haven't seen Birrarunga for the last few years, but hopefully it'll get back on track this year. So people look out for it. Yeah, so, but I had to audition like everyone else, of course. And I'd known Deb for years, you know. I think, yeah, she was part of, you know, would have gone to the playwrights conferences and, you know, other, you know, so just from around the traps. It's, you know, the First Peoples world's a bit smaller than yours in terms of, you know, yes, we know them. So, you know, and it was an amazing film. It was big, you know, it was all about the music, of course, and it was, but also it told the you know, again, you know, the theme of being stolen and taken away was there. So an amazing other performer who was in Stolen, Tammy Anderson, was also in Sapphires. She was the one in whose daughter was taken away in the hospital. You know, these are real stories. Tony tells a story of, well, it's his story to tell, but in Stolen, at the end, we had to all come out and kind of basically break out of character and tell something about ourselves. And, you know, which is really confronting for everyone. And sometimes like, I've got nothing, you know. But, you know, and we had performers like who were actually part of the Stolen generation as well. Yeah. I never considered myself that because we were adopted. So that, you know, I didn't grow up in community. So it's, I call it an ongoing process, getting back, you know, to family without, you know, denying or, you know, that I actually had, you know,
yeah,
parents as well. So anyway, Sapphires, yeah, it was an amazing film. You know, Wayne Blair did an amazing job directing it. You know, I think poetic license, you know, in terms of, you know, what makes a good story and all that kind of stuff did probably kind of impact a bit. But, you know, Tony's mum,
yeah,
was on Sapphires. He has, you know, like, I think, you know, got on him for telling that story. And I tell you what, the number of, you know, young First Peoples, you know, young kids and young girls especially, who come up and always make me say that line, you know, you're still not going. They just love it. So I had to say it down the barrel of phones all many years. Yeah, just like, oh, I'm going to jump the gun again.
Yeah, not yet. What was it like working with Jessica? What was she like?
Oh, she was beautiful.
Yeah.
And, so that was the film was shot in Albury Wodonga.
Okay.
And you know, she's, you know, a big star, young Jess. But she took time to go out and meet community on the community days and take the time to sit and, you know, sign autographs, take photos, like for hours.
Yeah.
You know, just such a sweet thing to do, you know. And also, you know, amazing singer.
Yeah.
And she didn't do such a bad job as a performer as well. I thought she was pretty gorgeous. Yeah.
Okay, now let's get to one of the greatest Australian TV shows of all time, Prisoner. You appeared in 10 episodes in Series 8 in 1986, from episode 658 to episode 668, when Sarah was transferred to Barnhurst for her own safety after racist Craven makes threats to Miss Madigan about you and the other girls she helps. Now, do you remember much about getting the part of Sarah, and did you have to audition for it?
Now, I did have to audition, now, but I can't really remember much of it. But I would say much of the credit for this storyline particularly, and my getting the role, is thanks to the wonderful, amazing Justine Saunders. So by this time, Prisoner had been running for over a decade.
I think it was 7 years at that time. 7, yeah.
Yeah. I think for most of that time, Justine had been pushing for an Aboriginal storyline.
Oh, really?
Yes. So, you know, and she was saying, look at the number of Aboriginal women incarcerated. You know, why don't we have First Peoples, as main characters? As, we need First Peoples storyline. And I can remember, very early on, even with the Fringe Dwellers, that, how she had, political aspirations to make sure our stories were out there. And of course, when Prisoner, she would say, why don't they have First Peoples, in this this show? So finally, she got her they listened.
Wow.
And Justine was given the role of a social worker, and I was the out of control Sarah West. So there was a nice balance as well. So to the storyline as well. So it wasn't just and the storyline was around the Aboriginal social worker doing as much as she could to support the Aboriginal prisoner. So yeah, I think it's all thanks to Justine that the storyline and I got the role.
So did you know prior to you coming on, you knew that she was doing that, trying to push for?
Yeah, I'd heard, and yeah. So it was I'd known her since Fringe Dwellers when she played my mother, and that I was still around, kind of pursuing a career as an actor, and and I was just lucky enough again, right place, right time to have this opportunity. Yeah. Wow. And really fresh out of college as well, still wet behind the ears and have no idea what I was doing. But anyway, and of course I didn't realise then at the time how actually political this was.
Yeah. Were you a fan of Prisoner, or had you seen any episodes before getting the part?
I had, on and off, of course. I can remember singing in the school playground. You used to bring roses. I've been around for a long time. Because I knew Justine from, even though I wasn't allowed to watch it, from number 96 in the box, and and she was absolutely stunning. Like she was, I thought, and of course the first time I'd seen like an Aboriginal woman on TV, in those roles, probably very sexualized roles as well, but still, there's an Aboriginal actor. So, again, a great honour to be in Fringe, but also a great honour to work with her in this storyline.
Yeah. There should have been more Aboriginal actors on TV. Many. Yeah. Now, what made you take the role of Sarah?
Get this right. I was working on Flying Doctors at the time, and I had to ask permission from the producers to go off and do the 10 episodes. And I had to work around the schedule. It couldn't, So there was a bit of work that I think my agent had to do as well around making that happen. So I should thank my agent at the time for allowing that to happen. And get this, Flying Doctors and Prisoner were on the same time, shown on the same time.
Oh, really?
Of Flying Doctors and Prisoner on Australian TV, different channels, same time. I don't know how that happened. It was quite hard actually, because you had to like change over, like click the might have even been that, click the channels. So
yourself on the same TV.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh no, Ad, move over, get over now, get on the other side. Yeah. So I was popular for a minute.
Wow.
Your storyline involved your character experiencing a lot of racism. How did you feel about having to act that out?
I really, I guess, you know, I acted, but also it was tough. But also, thank goodness Justine was there to kind of help along, you know, the storyline. You know, for me to understand what Sarah had been through. You know, Sarah too was adopted, or, you know, she had white parents and rebelled. So, you know, not much of a stretch, but I don't think I would have committed arson, but, you know, you never know. But yeah, so I could relate in that way. But I think the racism, you know, as much as that, I think they pushed it, you know, as far as they could, and I think it really kind of explained Sarah's anger.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Spider was the biggest racial antagonist of Sarah when you were in Prisoner. So did you and Taya actually ever discuss how you were going to approach those scenes? Of course, Taya Stratton, who's no longer with us. And what was it like working with her?
Taya too, it was a graduate of BCA class of 85.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I went to college, yeah.
Oh, you were prior, yep.
Yeah. I also went to Phil Hyde, was in the same year as well.
Rodney Adams.
Yeah. So he was, I'm not sure whether he was on at the same time. But anyway, like
with him,
yeah, he got the role in Prisoner before, you know, any of us, and we were quite, you know, quite jealous that he got a role in Prisoner like that. So, but, you know, also really, really proud and going, you know, we know him. And I was actually really jealous of Taya because she got to work with, you know, what is it, the rock star? What was his name? Uncanny X-Men.
Oh, yeah. Brian Mannix.
Brian Mannix. So yeah, Brian Mannix played Taya's boyfriend or something. I can't remember the storyline. But anyway, yeah. And so she got to go off site because, you know, what was all shot around Channel 10 Studios, of course. She got to go off site and, you know, hang out with Brian Mannix. So it was, geez, she got the good role. But she was fabulous. She, you know, at college, like Taya was kind of, you know, she was, you know, kind of stamped with, you know, star, you know, on her, I think. Yeah. So, and, you know, we were mates, so it was fine. We just sort of, yeah.
Did she find those scenes tough, though?
I think she did, actually. I would think, oh, you know, like I was saying, it's all right, you know.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's fine. You can, yeah, you know, it's in the script, mate. You've got to do it. Yeah, but she was wonderful.
Yeah.
Sarah was fiery and impulsive. How did you feel about that? And were there many personality similarities between you and her?
As I said, I haven't committed arson, all right? I'll just, you know, declare that. But other than that, you know, Sarah's journey, you know, many years later, I actually have worked with a mate of mine from IIbijerri who played in, who was in Sapphires. Yeah. We actually worked in Dame Phyllis Frost. We actually,
oh, wow.
Yeah, worked with the First Peoples women prisoners and produced a show, one night show within Dame Phyllis Frost. So
you did it at the actual prison?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. What was
you
that?
know, we went there one day a week for like over a year to perform, to direct one show, an Aboriginal show that the women had written about themselves.
Oh, really?
It was amazing. It was amazing because, yeah.
So the prisoners actually wrote the play.
They wrote the play, and I was brought in as part of an IIbijerri gig to come in, kind of, to get them to perform it. So in the first, the first day, I walk in there and with Tammy Anderson, and there are the women sitting there, and we've read this, read the script. So this is wonderful. This is where we're performing it. Is this the gym? I said, just walk around the space, feel it, and and I just sat there, like, what? I can walk around. 6 months later, they're performing, they're dancing, they're dancing, they're singing, wow. They're telling stories. It was an amazing opportunity and an amazing show. So it's called Seven Sisters Dreaming, it was called. And I wish that more people had got the opportunity to see it. But, from them not, one, like sitting on the stage, not moving, not wanting to do, to 6 months later, performing in front of, invited guests from outside, all the big funding bodies and all that kind of stuff. But just to see them tell their stories was the most amazing experience. The reason I was, apart from, that great opportunity, was I always thought, there, but for the grace of God, go I, and many of us, except the one thing that all those women had in common was they'd all been removed as children, or So, do the math. What needs to change here? All that kind of stuff. So, really, Sarah's story is unfortunately way too common. Justine was right to have fought so hard and strong to have an Aboriginal storyline in this show.
Yeah.
And to be able to tell Sarah's story. And also I think, the idea that within the system that there are Aboriginal people trying to help on the other side as well.
Yeah.
It was an amazing experience. I guess too, every Monday afternoon after I came out of, from being in Dame Phyllis Frost, and I'd open the boot of my car to put my bag in, and my back would go out.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's, I think, how I kind of, carried the trauma and until, I was fine for the next Monday, and in I'd go. So I don't know, and that's just, that's just a few hours within those, that atmosphere and, that environment.
Yeah.
Amazing that those women could do that they wanted to tell their stories, and they were given that opportunity. And, a lot of them, they're in there on remand. Yeah, not even
sentence.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And what were the officers like supporting the play and everything while you're in there? Were they all for it, or was there some that just didn't care? Or
no, I didn't see the ones that didn't care. No, and it was and there was an amazing Aboriginal liaison officer in there who was very supportive. And the women would sometimes not feel like it, every now and again that, what do they have locked down? You go, oh my gosh, that's it for the day. I'm out for the day. I'm just, not going to go anywhere else. There's also amazing programs. My co-worker at Creative Victoria, Sarah, she does goes into prisons and does a radio show for NAIDOC once,
wow.
every so you know we have a lot to do with our First Peoples prisoners, and the way that, you know, they have those opportunities to tell their stories, to get the opportunities to you know, to be heard on radio, to you know, but it's a tough life, and you know, I wouldn't wish it on anyone.
Do you think that's something you could ever go back and do again?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to get that opportunity. I think it'd be great. I mean, you know, it's a real challenge, but and I've had the opportunity to go in and see somebody's daughter's production. So that's the kind of the main in Dame Phyllis Frost, the main theatre work that goes on. But you know, this was just for the work we were doing was specifically for the First Peoples prisoners. Yeah.
Do you think a lot of those women that are there at the time when you were there were there and they shouldn't have been there? They're just, you know, listening to their stories and things like that? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. You know, and most amazed, and they did tell their stories, and they did talk to, you know, their numbers, you know, their CRN number or whatever.
Yeah.
That's who, you know, that opened the play, actually. So they came out and said, you know,
wow. Yeah.
You know, that was the beginning of, this is who you're just known as a number. That's your identity in there. But there's so much more.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, I know we went off a little bit, Trip, but I mean, there's some amazing stories. I mean, it's probably for another interview, I would say, but yeah, that's really, really beautiful what you've done there. Had you made friends with anyone from prison that you're still in contact with these days?
I've had, you know, I've seen other actors, you know, around the traps doing other things as well, you know, like the one thing too I probably wanted to get to was that how amazing, is it Joan? Who played the freak?
Oh, Maggie.
Maggie, yeah. I said Joan.
Ferguson was a character.
Yeah, thank you. So embarrassing when you name the person that, you know, the character.
Well, I called you Sarah when I first spoke to you.
And it's terrible because, like, that's all I will remember you as, you know. It's terrible, you know. Shame yourself not to say that. Oh, thank goodness. That's why I said Jane. There you go. So, the thing, and Ken, you would know this too, that they shot scenes out, you know, episodes outside of, you know, they shot episode, you know, 682 next to, you know, like 10 episodes down, so that, you know, you never really knew, you know, and it was all dependent on, I don't know what the set or whatever, you know, what scenes you were shooting out of the 10 episodes, you know, it could be from, you know, episode 1 to episode 10, and you know, have to quickly go and change, and it was really hard to keep kind of track of, you know, where you were, you know, like and hopefully someone was going to tell you. But the amazing thing, I remember one time, you know, we went from seeing, you know, shooting an episode and a scene in episode so and so, and it was, you know, I'm not explaining this very well, another episode. And we all went to change, and I came back, and Maggie said, "You weren't wearing that." What? They gave me this. I said, no, you weren't wearing that. Go back and change. She knew, you know, a bit like Maurie, she knew exactly what each of the characters was wearing. She was the only one who kind of could, you know, continuity, if you like. She knew exactly that what each character was doing and what episodes and scenes we were up to, you know. So she was like the stalwart, yeah. She was the matron. She knew exactly what the frick was going on when no one else did. And she was right, you know. They'd given me the wrong shirt for that episode. Not that there was much of a, you know, change of costume. I went and put on my floral, but yeah. So how's that? Amazing that the stalwarts of the show, that they cared enough, and they really believed. And of course, the other thing about Prisoner, it was the only show on TV that had real meaty, interesting female roles, whether you were black, white, or brindle, So, the opportunity, and I don't know whether as an actress, I don't like that name, Victor titles, we don't say lawyeress, but so the opportunity to be on a show that actually had really strong female roles, even though they were all prisoners, was fantastic, and that's what it was renowned for, and that's why we all kind of wanted to be on the show.
Did you, apart from Maggie, did you have any other cast members that you liked doing scenes with?
I think we said, like no, I just, like they were all, it was like a there was a real camaraderie, I guess, amongst the, it was like even though there were stars and, I don't know who you would call a star, I guess it was, the storyline said it would have been Maggie, but for the cast of prisoners, we all had the kind of opportunity to, have our own storylines and shine. And so, we all had great fun. I'm not sure whether I answered that question at all, but yeah, I mean, of course, it was wonderful working with Taya and of course, the wonderful Justine.
Yeah. Now, I know you just told us a great story about Maggie, but do you have any funny stories you could tell us about your time on Prisoner?
Just the crew. Yep. They were a funny story.
Justice crew or just the crew?
Just the crew.
Just the crew.
Oh my gosh. Actually, that was another thing too. The crew, they were just a bunch of shit stirrers. Like that. The word go, it was like, and that was great too, there was no lording over, coming in special guests. It's like, nah, just see if you can take, being stirred and being, make fun of and get, yeah. And that's what, and I'm luckily I can give as good as I get. So, I had a great time with the crew. They were fabulous.
Yeah, well, we wanted to welcome you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
The word actually came through during the filming of the Blackmore episodes that the show was going to be cancelled. What was the feeling like amongst everyone after that happened?
I think it was tougher for the mainstayers, the ones who had an ongoing role. I knew that I was just there for a little time and kind of, could go off and go back to my main gig at the time. But I think it was a really tough time for characters, for actors who'd been part of the show for many, many years. So it was quite heartbreaking for them. Yeah.
Now, I know every actress has a different technique for this, but what was your technique for learning your lines?
Bug friends to kind of go over the lines with me, and it's really basic old school. I write down the lines again and again until they stick. It's just something that I don't know. I can't, yeah, and so that becomes sort of second nature. I'm not very good at ad-libbing, I guess, at that stage. Yeah, so it was writing the words until they kind of finally, somehow or other, magically morphed up my arm, into my head, in out my mouth. So, but yeah, that's how I remember lines. I write them again and again. Oh, I wonder if there has kind of something about, having to write your timetables out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember one time is so by rote. Yeah.
Rote. Yep. Have you ever seen Wentworth?
I have. I'm on and off. I feel kind of, when you miss a few seasons and you feel like, oh, I've missed the boat on that.
Yeah.
And, I'll go back and I, particularly was so rapt to see Leah's role, Leah Purcell, and, the other, and again,
Oh, Shireen, is it Sharina Easton? Yes.
Yes. For more First People storylines, to be part of, and the, so that they're kind of, continuing roles as well. So it was really great to see that, and that they were meaningful roles, that they told the story of, why a character happened to come to, to be in this predicament as well. Yeah.
Yep. If we can have you just a little bit longer, we just want to maybe go through a couple of episode breakdowns and some fan questions. Now, the first one was episode 658, which was on the 28th of August, 1986, was written by Kit Oldfield and Gail Millian, directed by Kendall Flanagan. Studio cameramen were Ken Mulholland, Wayne Lavender, Jeff Biggs, and Mark Allen. Now, this was your first episode. You're brought to Wentworth on remand, struggling furiously. Miss Ferguson decides that you should be taken straight to the rec room to meet the other women, which didn't normally happen in Wentworth. You always put in solitary first, so she was stirring the pot. After racist abuse from Spider and a sugary welcome from Lorelei, played by Paula Duncan, you respond, "Rec room, huh? Let's wreck it." And you immediately set about destroying everything in sight as the other women run out of the rec room and shut the security gate. They cheer you on and you start throwing pool balls at them, and the commotion brings the other officers down on you. Now, that was a pretty, I went back and watched all your scenes just recently. Brilliant acting from you, amazing. But what was that scene like to film that? And that famous line that all the fans talk about.
Rec room, eh? Let's wreck it. Yes. Again, that's another line that people always want me to say. I forgot that Paula was in that as well.
Paula Duncan, yeah.
Yeah. I worked with Paula, and she was actually, of course, with Flying Daughters with Gil Tucker as well. So we did a pantomime, a panto one time together.
Wow.
That scene, I'm not sure whether it was the first scene that we shot, Ken, but so I remember kind of getting up and, like having to jump somewhere. I think, and it might have been the first take or rehearsal or something, I tripped or fell or something and hurt my ankle. So, it wasn't the best of, starts to my prisoner season. But I also remember kind of shaking the set too much. And of course, it was just basically the birthday, and just the whole thing just went like that. So it was like,
I mean, it wasn't a real prison. It was not real prison.
I know, I'm breaking the fourth wall. I'm so sorry, but it was just like flimsy as. So I had to kind of like, can you please stop? Don't shake the set. All right. Look angry. Look like you're smashing the place apart, but don't actually touch anything. So it was. So I loved it when the whole whoops. So yeah, that was a really that was a great scene, and chance to kind of go a bit wild and throw pool balls. And
they actually the real balls you were throwing, the pool balls?
Well, I don't think, they must have been, but I wasn't allowed to hit anything, so but yeah, great one. Anyways, oh my goodness, I can remember like a few years after that, I was, it wouldn't have even been a few years, a year after I was, catching the Broady train home, because that's what we good, our, good, what is it? Local Melbourne girls do. And I got on, and a group of young teenagers came up and said, hey, you were on Prisoner, what are you doing here? Why aren't you getting, a chauffeur-driven limo home? And I just said, it's just, welcome to the acting world. And then they again were going, hey, rec room, eh? Hey, Broady train, eh? Let's try that, like they were just kept like, I just loved it. Like, and wherever I went, like these were, kind of, hey, Safeway's coal, let's coal it, or something. It's just made no sense whatsoever. But yeah, so that line was thrown back to me quite a few times over the years. Love it. Yeah.
And do you still get recognised for the role now, like to today's date?
No. I don't know.
Well, look, you still look young, so.
Yes, that's right. I don't know why. You may know me from such things as. No, but hey, I can boast that I was actually in, that, what is it? One of the longest running all, female, shows.
And being on another show at the same time on another channel. I mean,
exactly.
Say that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who'd want to do that? Yeah.
Fantastic.
If you actually think back to that particular scene, when we did the rehearsals, you went at sort of half speed. I'll do this, and then I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to turn this over, and then I'm going to throw these, and blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't really until we got to take one, and I can't really remember how many times we did it, but that's when you really cut loose. Yes. Full pace. So the guys on cameras suddenly have to be on their mettle, because we know where you are sort of going to go through that sequence. But of course, when it's fast paced and you're starting to throw stuff around.
And the walls are shaking.
Well, yeah, I think we might have got a few stage hands alongside the walls to stop them from moving around quite so much after the first take, or
Yeah.
But, just going on to episode 659, which aired on the 2nd of September 1986, and it was written by Quincy McQuaid, directed by Sean Nash. Studio cameramen were Wayne Lavender, Gil Oberhofer, Andrew Curry, and I was probably there myself. Miss Ferguson has to get Mr. Adams and Mrs. Pringle to subdue you. Merle sees you being manhandled to solitary and worries that you might be a witch doctor. You are locked in solitary, shouting and kicking the furniture. Mrs. Reynolds and Miss Madigan come to see you later, but you are still defiant, and they decide to leave you to it. Spider delivers the meal to you in solitary and accidentally, of course, drops it on the floor. Spider is infuriated when you are put in the same cell as her, but you punch her in the face, and Spider vows you will pay for it. What are your memories of your first full episode and working with Gerda Nicholson and Justine Saunders, who of course are no longer with us?
You're just bringing back a lot of memories now. And, she still hasn't calmed down, has she, Sarah? But, that's what, so she's, kind of fighting still, dealing with Spider the way she is. So, when you, as young up and coming, behind the ears actors, when you're in the room with your elders, that you pay respect, that you listen and you learn, and I mean, that's how we were brought up. And so that's, you know, how wonderful it was to actually to be in the presence of Gerda was quite amazing. And she really was, you know, like a very authoritative but calming force.
Yep.
So yeah, it was kind of, you know, it's like you know, it's like when you see like a star and you're actually in their orbit for a second and you go, you know, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. That's how I felt. And I think I also felt that always with Justine as well. So amazing. I'm not sure when that was actually, you know, kind of whether that was filmed in sequence. It probably wasn't. No, it wouldn't. So I think I'd had a few, you know, days on set by then, and you know, just kind of, you know, trying to fit in with everyone else, I guess. Yeah, but always feeling very supported.
Yeah. Now the next episode. Now I'm going to go in a bit of length here, and I feel it's important that we included this episode, especially towards the end of it. So if you can just bear with me, it's episode 660, which aired on the 4th of September 1986, written by John Coulter and Maurie Trevor, directed by Sean Nash, and the studio cameraman Ken Mulholland, Wayne Lavender, and Andrew Curry, and Gil Oberhofer. So Mr. Jackson takes you to the workshop where Spider and Vicky decide to incite the other women to attack you. Spider and Vicky kidnap you and paint you white. You free yourself and dash to the rec room where you make a lunge for Spider and Vicky. You lag on them, but then the women vote not to punish you. Spider achieves her biggest object when Mrs. Reynolds tells her she and you will no longer be sharing a cell together. Alice has a chat with you to tell you you've been let off for lagging, which never happens in prison. You con Miss Stout into letting you into the workshop to find the photo of your parents, where you steal a bottle of hydrochloric acid. You rig up a tripod in Spider's cell to make the acid give off poisonous fumes. And when the women start feeling ill, the prison is evacuated. Mel goes back in looking for Kath, and Rita follows to make sure she wears a gas mask. Rita finds you hiding under a running shower and demands to know what's going on. Rita makes you dismantle the equipment and covers for you by pretending to have saved you. Now, Mrs. Reynolds threatens to cancel all the women's privileges, but you confess and are taken to isolation. After lights out, Rita breaks into isolation to urge you to be more responsible. Now, this is where I find it's a really special scene and so beautifully written by the writers. She cuts her finger with a knife and shows you the blood, pointing out it's all the same color, which I think is just should be taught everywhere, you know, from a young age in school. But what was it like filming? I mean, that scene covers a lot of different aspects of racism and how did you feel about all that?
Again, I don't think I was quite aware, you know, in the writing of how, you know, kind of, you know, when you're a young wet behind the ears actor, you're just looking at your role and your lines and, you know, when am I meant to speak next and all that kind of stuff. But in retrospect, you know, exactly how powerful is that? And also that I had the opportunity to work with a lot of different kind of main characters, you know, it was wonderful. Yeah. And, you know, and just see, look, the depth of female, you know, acting in this country is amazing. That were always really, you know, kind of I learned, you know, from being on that set when so many things were going on, so many storylines, you know, like you know, like I'm pretty sure, you know, like, well, Ken, you would know more than probably, you know, more than 10 probably, you know, from episodes that I, you know, wasn't in and or wasn't involved with, they were being shot as well. To keep up with that, to And to have that depth too in the writing, it's quite amazing, you know. And I didn't realise I was such a chemist. There you go. See, parents, industrial. But and also, you know, you're right. Getting off for lagging is pretty amazing. You know, and it showed that the other, you know, that's it. You know what, you know, even though, you know, what is it? You can't. It's hard to change people's perspective. I can't even say it.
Perspective.
You that one.
Perspective, yes.
Perspectives. Gosh, I hope you know that there are others around who you know, and it's still that story today, you know.
Yeah.
You know, speak out. If you see something wrong, say something. You know, that not the government side, but you know, like not the, you know, but you know, something terrible's happening to someone, and it's, you know, it's wrong and it's racist and it's, you know, inappropriate. That, you know, there's, you know, you've got to speak out about it, and Rita does it in her own way.
Yeah, definitely.
And what was
oh, sorry, Ken.
Episode 662 aired on the 9th of September 1986 and was written by Alastair Webb, directed by Tony Ossica, studio cameramen unknown, as credits cut off on both YouTube and Daily Motion, but I would bet my little bottom dollar that I and Wayne Lavender would probably have been there. Mr. Jackson has
outrageous, Ken. You have to do something about it.
Mr. Jackson has to prevent you going for Spider when you trade insults walking along the corridor after muster. Rita tries to explain to you why they have to back Spider against the officers. Mr. Jackson sends you and Merle to get paint for the shed, but you scare Merle away by pretending you are going to put a curse on her. Spider takes the opportunity to drive a tractor at you, but Merle pushes you out of the way. Merle defends you when Vicky pretends to attack you with a plank of wood. You knock Merle out with a door thinking that she's Vicky and have to run to get Lorelei to help. You're brought to see the treatment the women have given Spider. She has been blacked up with mud and her hair twisted into devil horns. For some reason, you don't seem to find the sight very amusing. Mrs. Reynolds and Miss Madigan come to talk to you and find out what the women have done to Spider. What was it like to work with Roseanne Hull-Brown and Rebecca Deans? What did you think of the revenge the women took on Spider, which is what Spider did to your character?
Gee, yeah. Roseanne and Rebecca are amazing actors, hey, because, you know, nothing like their characters, of course. But, you know, how complicated is that? That's like a, you know, you know, like, what the heck's going on here?
Where did the tractor come from in the prison?
I don't know. I can't remember the tractor, but anyway. Yeah, lots going on. Yeah, it's so much is going on. What the heck? The writers, but I guess again the message, you know, I love the fact that she, you know, carries on with the you know, the idea of being a witch doctor or something with Merle. It's just, you know, just shocking. But I can't say anything about that episode apart from, you know, how wonderful the actors are, you know. And
you're right, it was a bit Benny Hill.
It was. It was a bit Benny Hill, but yep.
Episode 668, which was your last episode, aired on the 25th of September 1986, written by Quincy McQuaid, directed by Sean Nash, and the studio cameramen were Ken Mulholland, Gil Oberhofer, Mark Collins, and Jeff Biggs. So Miss Madigan slaps Governor Craven, played by Ray Marr, for his racist comments, and then asked Mrs. Reynolds to transfer you and the other prisoners to prevent reprisals from Craven. You deliver Rita's dinner to Solitary and tell her you're sorry about her brother. You tell her you're being transferred. She encourages you to contact your real father and says you'll regret it if you don't. You tell her to look after herself, and she says the same to you. In the corridor, you shout to the other women locked in their cells that Rita's back and is in Solitary to give her hope. And this starts the women cheering and then chanting Rita's name. Do you have any memories of, I mean, was that the last scene, or was that shot, you know, was it mixed up out of order?
I think it might have been the last scene.
Okay.
But, you know, maybe in my head that the Holly Rock would say it should have been. But yeah, see, that's nice. That was a good, strong storyline. Yeah, and how do you deal with, you know, you know, a wayward character like Sarah's? But, you know, I think she finds her feet, she sticks up for herself, you know, well, she doesn't play the victim, and you know, and she has a heart of gold underneath, like we all do. Like all the women do, you know. I forgot that, you know, that Ray was in that as well. My goodness, see?
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved my time in prison. I shouldn't say that. I loved my time in prison, on the prisoner set.
With
yeah.
the walls.
Yes. And yeah, it was a lovely way, because, you know, it was because I knew that it was limited time, limited storyline. Justine got her, you know, her way, and, you know, good on her, staunch, and, you know, she represented, and you know, it was really, really great experience.
Yeah.
Now we get to the fan questions. I've got one from Jay Kelly. Wow, that's a good way to start. What a treat this is going to be. Kylie was brilliant on Prisoner. Does Kylie think racist characters like Spider should still be portrayed on television, or should racist characters no longer be portrayed in case they cause offence?
Oh, good question, Jay. I mean, I think, you know, racism is alive and well in the world. And, you know, I think it's a responsibility of our, you know, our creative industries, our film industry, our TV industry, to shine a light on that and to make a stand. So yeah, I think so. So long as they always get their comeuppance, and, you know, so long as, and you know, we know that they don't, but you know, the world's a scary place. The world, you know, from a First Peoples perspective, it's still as racist as it ever was. You know, I think there's systemic racism. You know, we as First Peoples deal with it every day. So yes, I think to tell that story, unfortunately, you need to have the racist characters, and you know, I think it was, you know, it's tough to play those roles as well. You know, it's great to have those opportunities, but it's, you know, it's tough to shake it off at the end of the day. And, you know, like, you know, maybe you are like that, I don't know, but, you know, you'd hope that you wouldn't be, that you understand the storyline enough. But yeah, I hope I was supportive to Taya in that instance, as I probably wasn't as supportive as I should have been in retrospect, but I'm really proud of her for taking on that role.
Yeah. So you say it's still strong as ever, the racism in, you know, it hasn't gotten better. It's.
No, I don't think so. I mean, you know, I kind of deal with it in a different way, for example, than my daughter. Yeah. So, you know, she has a tough time out there. I worry, you know, a lot about her going out, you know, on the weekend and what she has to put up with. Yeah, when times get tough, you know, and they are, and they'll get tougher. That's, you know, it's a, and I don't know, like a, yeah, it's like a, what is it called? Like a perfect opportunity for things like this to happen, to continue to happen. And for racism and to thrive. It's anyway, yeah.
No, it's okay. Now, this is a comment from Stuart Kerry. I think Kylie played a huge part towards the end of Prisoner. And when the viewer feels that uncomfortable watching, as I suspect many did, the character of Sarah was so important. As a viewer, this was perhaps one of Prisoner's finest storylines, with all the central characters showing their best and worst traits. I really hope off-screen Kylie, Taya and Philip Hyde were the best of buddies, because for me, the storyline was so well acted and took Prisoner right back to its earlier groundbreaking storylines.
Thank you, Stuart. I agree. And I think that's what, you know, we've been saying. And there you go. So you got 3 class of 85 VCAs there who were there to support each other and represent as well. Yeah. It's great to hear about the groundbreaking story too, because, you know, as I said, that's what Justine had been fighting for all those years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I've got one from Cole Taylor. He says, fantastic. I seem to recall Kylie and Taya playing really good friends in an episode of The Flying Doctors not long after Prisoner. Quite a change to their relationship in Prisoner.
You know what? I think that I got that muddled up. She actually played the character in Flying Doctors. Yeah, I got it wrong. See, that's why.
So long ago.
I got confused changing the channels. But exactly. And I was jealous of her then because she, you know, it was in a Flying Doctors episode. There you go. I'm glad Cole knew. Yeah.
Now this is it's more of a comment now, because we have spoken about a couple of the people. Dave Metcalf said Kylie was superb in those episodes she was in. It must have been hard to hear some of the script. The words were often racist and horrible towards your character, but you played the part so well. I think your character should have stayed longer and developed more friendships, such as Merle and Rita. And oh God, an awful Rodney Adams was just vile to your character. In fact, he was a total shitbag. Excuse my language.
It really is. M. Fripp, who is a very good artist, says, hi, Kylie. I thought you were one of the very best characters in the show's latter years, with a brilliant performance and some very, very powerful scenes. Could you please tell us a little about what it was like to play some of those scenes with Taya Stratton? And did you prepare differently for scenes that involved heavy racism? Thank you.
It's a tough one. No, I think probably, you know, again, like thankful for the script, thankful for, you know, the script writers taking on those the challenges around portraying racism. And you know what, it's nothing new to, you know, kind of First Peoples actors in the roles that they've had to to play. So, you know, like Aboriginal women, you know, in roles, and I played them, you know, were raped and pillaged, and, you know, they were victim roles. The opportunity, you know, to be able to fight back, not literally, but, you know, Sarah did, but also to, yeah, and to, yeah, and to have the storyline go, you know, put the racist in their place is really, you know, it was a great opportunity. Yeah, so it's, you know, having to play those victim roles, having to play the, you know, the roles where, you know, like, you know, doom and gloom, and you know, that's unfortunately a lot of the time, until, you know, it is particularly the First Peoples role. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel that's so important, what you just said, putting a racist back in their place. I mean, that is, I mean, yeah, so true. Definitely. Jamie Brown and many other fans, I won't list the 20 other fans that said the same thing, but they said, "You were fantastic in Prisoner. I loved your line, rec room, let's wreck it," which we've spoken about. But there was, yeah, a common theme among the fans.
Exactly. It's very memorable, that one. I like,
Yeah.
One from Ollie James says, "Yes, I was so hoping for you to interview Kylie. This was such a groundbreaking storyline. I loved Kylie as Sarah. She was incredible. Can you tell Kylie I would have loved to have seen her in the show for longer to see how Sarah's character developed? I have a couple of questions. How did you find working with Taya as the main protagonist to your character of Sarah? And did you both you and Taya find it uncomfortable with the racial language used, even though it was within the context of the storyline? How did you find the development of your character, and would you have liked to have," this is more than a couple of questions.
I think we've covered a lot of these.
Would you have liked to have been in the show for longer? I love the fact that Sarah came in all gung-ho. One of my favourite lines from the rec room, "Hey, let's wreck it." So good. And then with the nurturing and guidance of Rita, Glenda Linscott, Sarah came to understand that not everyone is racist, and acceptance is a two-way street, so to speak. I just can't speak highly enough of this storyline. I really did love the character of Sarah, and you portrayed her phenomenally. Thank you, Kylie.
Oh, thanks, Ollie. That's lovely.
I think we covered a lot of that already with the yeah. Dave Abbott Smith said, "Hi, Kylie. Fan of your work, both in Prisoner and also Little Elvis and the Truck Stoppers. When performing as Sarah, how much input were you allowed into the writing of dialogue for accuracy's sake?" Follow-up question, both for its time and in present day, are you satisfied with your portrayal?
Oh, no, never satisfied. You know, could have always done it better. The next take would have been the best one. No, I don't think in those days we had much say on the script. You know, we might have changed a word or two, but not really. And, you know, it was pretty powerful writing in the first place. Yeah, I don't think there was much. And I would have taken Justine's lead if she said, you know, change it. I would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess that's also probably a follow-up question with Paddy Barrett, was with Sarah being the first Indigenous character in Prisoner, did the producers and writers work with you beforehand on the character and the story arc?
Yeah, I'd say they Justine.
Yeah,
was the consultant for the storyline on that one.
Yeah.
Jay Shaw says, "What a fantastic actress. I wish Kylie could have stayed longer in Prisoner." And one from Bonnie Shacko, I would like to know how she felt joining the show in its last season and if she wished she could have come in earlier.
Oh, of course. But, you know, maybe it wouldn't have been me if Justine had got, you know, the storyline 5 years earlier. How wonderful would have that been? But no, I think it was, you know, a great loss of an opportunity for, you know, to continue with good, strong female roles on TV. Need more of them.
Yeah, definitely. Max Dweeb said, excellent. In my opinion, one of the most prolific and poignant storylines in the show's history. Kylie, you played this character perfectly. Is there anything, and in brackets, I'm sure there isn't, that you would have changed about your performance?
You know, that look that in that photo, like that, like, you know, my daughter knows that look well, but she kind of, you know, like she'll do that back to me, like, you know, makes it, because it's like, you know, my act angry look. So she kind of sees right through it. Yeah, so that was a bit much, the old, you know, look angry in you know, promo photos. I don't think I'd do that now. You know, it's not very nice. Like, I don't need to see that, you know, 30 years later, staring back at me. But it wouldn't have made sense for me to be like, you know, either. So, yeah, so it went with the character.
Stephen James says, loving the podcast. I am so glad you're interviewing Kylie. She is a fab actor. I am currently watching Flying Doctors on Stan and love her character in that, as well as Prisoner, of course. I'd love to hear about Kylie's experience working on Prisoner and Flying Doctors, as well as what she is up to these days. And that's from Steve in Melbourne.
We've just talked about that. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah. I was very lucky to get the opportunity to take time off from Flying Doctors to do that. So, yeah.
John Walters said, me and my brother Wayne think you are a dynamo in Prisoner. Also for Kylie, would you have liked to have punched Rodney Adams breaking his nose?
I don't think I didn't. I mean, that would have been one of the things I would have liked to. Yeah. Yeah. Talking about, you know, characters getting their comeuppance, but I think that his character did, yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, Joan Ferguson slapped him for being racist. Yeah.
That's right.
He did get it in the end.
It should have been me, but anyway.
Matthew Brown says, yes, Kylie's role was pivotal towards the end and was one of the last new batch of characters included before the ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. Martin White said, I'd like to ask Sarah, who were her Indigenous acting mentors growing up? And she was fabulous in the Fringe Dwellers movie. How important did she feel that movie was for Indigenous Australia exposure for Indigenous actors?
Good question, Martin. So Fringe Dwellers, I spoke of that experience, yeah. And of course, Justine was in that. You know, it was the first film, I think, with almost an all Aboriginal main cast. So really important, you know, to you know, and again, the opportunity to work with the likes of Justine, of Uncle Bob Mazza, you know, so many other, you know, amazing Aboriginal actors. It was, you know, it was almost like as pivotal as being at the second Aboriginal Playwrights Conference for me. And of course, I knew a lot of those, you know, the actors from that. So, you know, I'd met them and, you know, was allowed to, and again, had the opportunity to kind of continue learning from and, you know, being around other Aboriginal performers, which I hadn't had the opportunity to do before. You know, just sort of, you know, it's changed my life.
Yeah.
Really, yeah.
Wow.
Darren Hembrow says, yes, amazing. This is brilliant news and can't wait to see the interview. I'd like to ask what scenes she found the easiest and hardest to act. One of the best short-term characters on the show and sadly not in it long enough.
Oh, I think, you know, the hardest one was the old, you know, rec room. And, you know, really challenging. It's like, you know, I think, you know, one of the first scenes shot, you know, like you go on your very well-established set, you know, crew who kind of, you know, been around, you know, and know it very well. And, you know, you want to impress. You want to come, you know, and incredibly nervous because, you know, being around so many amazing performers as well. So, yeah, so I think the Rec Room one, it was, you know, like the one where everyone was, you know, watching. So,
yeah, the adrenaline must have been high for you doing that scene.
Yeah, and of course the choreography, you know, I'm not the most graceful and, you know, can't dance for you know what, but so yeah, it is like, you know, you have to learn the dance and the steps like Ken was saying. And you know, I did fall, I think, at one stage and hurt myself. I can remember that, and sort of, you know, where's the safety officer and all that kind of stuff. You know, it was my fault, you know, I took the wrong turn or whatever. So yeah, so pretty embarrassing, that one.
This is a comment. Brian Lee Whitworth said, wow, she looks great. From the promo photo we put up.
And Jason Burridge also says, now this will be interesting. Great choice of guest.
Oh, thank you.
And Joshua Bullmore said, did Kylie have any expectations of the role or any backlash, or did it just not bother her?
No, I wasn't worried about backlash. You know, possibly I should have, but no, I just saw it as what it, you know. Hey, how lucky am I? Been on 2 Australian shows at one time, mate. Come on.
Nicholas Genides says, and again, it's a comment and a compliment, one of my favourite actresses.
All right, this is enough of this.
Well, I could have added another 3 or 4 pages of these comments.
No more.
There's a lot on the, if you go and have a look at the Talking Prisoner Facebook page, there is just literally more and more. So we didn't want to become too repetitive, but yeah, you were amazing.
And the last one is from Stuart Foran. And he doesn't want to talk about you, Kylie. He just wants to talk about Adams, who was vile. I so wanted him sacked.
Slapped him. Yeah.
Poor Rodney.
Come on.
And that's all the fan questions. Now, is there anything that you're up to at the moment that we can, you know, anything you're behind the scenes you're working on, theatre, or I mean, I know COVID stopped a lot of things, but
yeah. No, I just say look out for celebrations next year of IIbijerri Aboriginal Theatre's 30-year celebration, even though it will be in their 31st. You know, of course, there was meant to be a live sort of show celebration last year or this year, but there'll be a coffee book, you know, printed next year as well on the 30th anniversary. So, you know, Aboriginal theatre is alive and well, which is wonderful. Yeah. Definitely. And it's where we all get our, you know, our experience and chops from, and, you know, so please support an Aboriginal theatre show if ever you get the opportunity.
Definitely. And we'll put a link up to that on the interview also. Definitely. Now, Ken was the cameraman on Prisoner from day one to the end, real veteran. I'm just a fan. So on behalf of all the fans, I do want to thank you for bringing what you brought to the character Sarah West. The acting was amazing. The storylines that you were given were written beautifully, and you just portrayed the role so well. And even going back and watching it just a few weeks ago, it still stands a test of time to this day. So I do thank you for that.
My pleasure. And also, I still get fan mail from England for Cell Block H. How's that?
Yeah.
Or a lot of people do, but it still gives me a thrill to think that, it was so popular all over the world.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
It really has. That was episode 27 of Talking Prisoner. Thank you for watching. If you could please subscribe to our YouTube channel and share our videos where you can, and also like our Facebook page. And this episode of Talking Prisoner is also going to be available across all the podcast platforms, including Google, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and the 50 others that are online, and also on the talkingprisoner.com website. Thanks for watching.